I gotta tell you, if you'd ever told me that defending a patch of cow pasture would land me in court against a bunch of suburban tennis enthusiasts, I probably would have laughed you off my porch. Yet here I am. Let me warn you right up front. If you think HOAs are just about mailbox paint and lawn height, you might want to grab a chair. You're not going to believe how far some folks will go when they think a little authority gives them the right to rewrite property lines. So, picture this. I'm pulling up my gravel driveway, the same one my granddad's old truck used to rattle down. The first thing I see is this electric green construction fence slicing right through the South Creek pasture. It looked like somebody let neon snakes loose on my grazing land. That's the spot where my Angus cattle have spent more happy afternoons than I can count, with the mountains for company and a spring that's never run dry. It should have been a peaceful golden hour, with cattle lowing and the air cooling off for the evening. But instead, my boots are crunching on gravel and my pulse is picking up. What I'm looking at isn't just weird, it's wrong. There were brand new concrete foundations and fresh tire tracks from heavy equipment. And this part still gets me. There's a whole blueprint board posted up like it's the next big city park. Turns out, someone's planning a tennis court complex, full-sized floodlights and all. The permits were stapled up for everyone to see, signed by a Barbara Hastings, president of the Oak Ridge Estates HOA. Now, here's the kicker. I've never been in an HOA. My land has been Montgomery land since '47, way before Oak Ridge Estates was even a glimmer in a developer's eye. I bought it straight from my granddad's estate, clear deed, no fine print, no sneaky easements. The county says it's agricultural, and that's that. So, I call up Nathan, my lawyer. You could practically hear the gears turning as he flips through his files. "Caleb, that doesn't make any sense," he says. I tell him to say that to the cement mixer in my pasture. He tells me not to touch a thing. Just take photos and document it all, every inch, every survey stake. And that's exactly what I do. For the next hour, I'm a one-man crime scene investigator. I take pictures of every post and every weirdly official-looking piece of paper. I even photographed how the survey lines cut right through my property. Maybe someone misread a map, or maybe they just didn't give a damn. Either way, my meadow had more survey stakes than fence posts. Night falls, and I head back to my house. The cattle are bunched up by the barn, looking as annoyed as I feel. I try to tell myself it'll all get sorted out. It's just a mistake or a mix-up. Somebody will see reason. But I don't sleep much that night. Next morning, my phone rings at 7 sharp. Unknown local number. I answer, and it's Barbara herself. Her voice is all business, clipped like she's used to people jumping when she barks. "Mr. Montgomery, crews will be returning today. Please keep your livestock away." I'm barely awake, but I sit bolt upright. "That's my land," I tell her. She doesn't even pause. "I'm afraid you're mistaken, Mr. Montgomery. The tennis court is being constructed on HOA common land, as filed with the county." My patience snaps. My deed says otherwise. That meadow's been in my family for almost 80 years, but Barbara doesn't care. "I don't have time for this. The project is approved. The board signed off. Don't interfere, or we'll take legal action." That's rich, right? She hangs up before I can even respond. I step outside, and 2 pickups and a flatbed are already there. Guys are unloading more lumber, laying out chalk lines like they're prepping for the US Open. I go straight to the man in charge, a guy in a hard hat with a clipboard who doesn't even look surprised to see me. Jimmy Dawson, the site manager. "We're just following permits," he says, waving around papers stamped by the HOA and the county. I tell him the county made a mistake and that I'm filing a court motion. Jimmy suddenly looks like he'd rather be anywhere else and says he'll call Barbara. 5 minutes later, he's back, telling his crew to keep going. My jaw clenches so hard, I think I might chip a tooth. I call Nathan again. He's at the courthouse working on an emergency motion. I try the sheriff's dispatcher, but they're busy with an accident and say it might be a while. So I stand there, helpless, watching them pour concrete. My cattle hang back, eyeing the whole mess like they know something's wrong. Finally, near noon, a sheriff's deputy pulls up. A young woman, Deputy Sarah Jenkins. She listens to both sides, looks at my deed, and then looks at their permits. "This is a civil matter," she says. "I can't stop them without a court order." That's the law. I get it, but it still stings. It feels like being robbed in broad daylight while the cops just shrugged. But Nathan pulls through. He says we've got a hearing at 4. I spend the afternoon digging up every deed, survey, and scrap of paperwork my family has ever kept. I drive to the courthouse and hand them over. In the waiting area, Nathan tells me Barbara is already there with her lawyer. His name is Richard Vance, an HOA law specialist. They look like they just walked off a golf course. Court starts. Judge Eleanor Brooks doesn't mess around. She barely says hello before asking Nathan to present our case. Nathan lays out the chain of title, the surveys, everything. The HOA's lawyer counters with their own maps and community land designations. But the judge cuts straight to the heart of it. "Do you have evidence the land was ever transferred from Mr. Montgomery to the HOA?" Richard Vance hems and haws, then admits they don't. They just had a survey that suggested the land was available. You ever see a house of cards collapse? That's what it looked like. The judge grants the restraining order, and work stops immediately. Barbara's face goes red. Her lawyer tries to object, but the judge shuts him down hard. "You built on someone else's land without permission," she says, scolding them like a kid who got caught shoplifting. Over the next few weeks, the HOA floods me with threatening letters. "Let us build, or we'll sue. Let us build, or we'll report you for violations." I forward them all to Nathan. He sends back responses that basically say, "See you in court." My meadow sits half-finished, concrete curing in the sun, my cattle giving it a wide berth. I start to wonder if this will ever end. Then, one evening, there's a knock at the door. It's Barbara, flanked by 2 other board members, acting all neighborly. "We'd like to offer a settlement," they say. $50,000 for an easement. I don't even hesitate. The land isn't for sale, I tell them. They bump it up to $75,000. I tell them again, no amount of money is changing my answer. That's where my cattle graze. It's staying that way. Barbara's patience runs out. "You're making a mistake. We'll fight this in court and bleed you dry in legal fees." I tell her, "Guess we'll both spend money, then." Now get off my porch. Their SUV peels out, kicking up dust. I stand there thinking, did that really just happen? Meanwhile, the HOA tries to make my life hell. They send violation notices about my barn, my fence, my tractors. Nathan just laughs it off. "You're not part of their HOA. These are meaningless." Still, it wears on me. One morning, I find new survey stakes driven all along my property, right up to my barn. Nathan says, let them waste their money. Just keep documenting everything. When the full hearing arrives, it's a circus. A bigger courtroom, more lawyers, and all the HOA board members in tow. They bring out surveyors, maps, and county plats. Nathan calls our own surveyor, Bill O'Connor, a guy who's been doing this for 30 years. Bill lays it out plain. There's no gray area here. That meadow is Montgomery land. The HOA surveyor admits under Nathan's cross-examination that he never actually looked at individual deeds. He just looked at county maps. He missed the fact that my family has been working that land since before he was born. Barbara gets called to the stand as smug as ever. She claims the board truly believed the land was theirs. Nathan presses her. Did she ever look at my deed before pouring concrete? Wasn't necessary, she snaps. Judge Eleanor Brooks isn't impressed. After hours of testimony, she rules in my favor. She orders the HOA to remove everything, pay damages and attorney's fees, and restore the land entirely. Barbara tries to get a stay. The judge denies her on the spot. Nathan pats me on the back. We did it, but Barbara doesn't quit. While demolition crews jackhammer up the concrete, she starts filing liens, violation notices, and noise complaints about my cattle. Nathan files motions and gets everything thrown out. The sheriff's deputies know me by name at this point. Then, this is where karma decides to show up in boots. One night, someone cuts my fence and builds a new one 30 feet into my property. My cattle can't graze near the subdivision. But my security cameras catch a white pickup with an HOA sticker and 3 figures. One of them, in expensive outdoor gear, is directing the others. The deputies pay Barbara a visit. She admits it, claiming she thought she was within her rights. Turns out, that's vandalism and trespassing. Barbara gets charged, and her mugshot ends up in the local paper. The Oak Ridge Estates residents finally start demanding answers. Joe throws an emergency meeting and votes her out. Marcus Reynolds, the same board member who tried to buy me off, calls me personally. He apologizes and offers a clean slate. They promise to pay for the fence drop and drop the nonsense notices. They also sign a formal letter admitting my land was never, ever part of their association. I get the check for damages, a notarized document, and, at last, some peace. The criminal case drags on a bit, but Barbara eventually pleads guilty. She gets probation, fines, and community service. I don't take any pleasure in seeing her fall. Mostly, I just feel relief. She moves away. The new HOA board keeps their distance, promising to check deeds before ever starting a project again. In my meadow, I spend that spring planting native grass, letting my Angus reclaim the land. The scars from the tennis court finally fade. I hire a local kid to help with chores, and when he asks about the whole mess, I just give him some advice. Stand up for what's yours. Do your homework. Okay? Don't let anyone push you around just because they think they have more power or a fancier lawyer. Life rolls on. The reporter from the local paper calls me up for a year-end story. She wants to know if HOAs are all bad. I tell her not always. But when folks in charge forget where their authority ends, that's when trouble starts. She asks what I'd say to Barbara if I saw her. I say, hello? Maybe nothing more. Holding a grudge just means you're letting them rent space in your head. Now and then, I still get calls from other ranchers, folks who heard about my case. They want advice. They want to know if it's worth fighting. And you know what? Because boundaries matter. The law matters. If you don't defend what's yours, someone else will come along and try to take it. One evening, as the sun sets, I'm out by the South Creek pasture, right where the tennis court was supposed to be. My best cow is lying in the grass, calves playing nearby, with the mountains glowing pink and gold. You couldn't tell there was ever a court there, except maybe a slightly different shade of green. Take a deep breath. Peaceful, finally. There's something almost poetic about it, right? They built their plans, poured their concrete, and still, the land went back to being what it always was. Ranchland, a place for cattle, not tennis. I guess in the end, the cows won. Let me ask you, what would you have done in my boots? When does standing up for your rights turn into stubbornness? And when is it the only thing keeping the world from running roughshod over you? Ever had a neighbor or a boss or a company try to take more than they're owed? I'd love to hear how you handled it. Drop your story below. Right wrong in the comments. Sometimes the only way justice gets done is when regular folks stand their ground and say, not today. And that's my story. Thanks for sticking around to hear it.